This video is a short review lesson on the operations with integers. So quick reminder, integers are positive and negative whole numbers. And a lot of times people get caught up in how do I know what sign I'm supposed to have. So this video is looking at how we determine the sign when we're doing operations with integers. So with addition and subtraction, it's kind of nice to look at addition and subtraction rather than here's your final answer, because if we look at it that way, we have a whole lot of different scenarios. We can have a positive plus a positive plus a negative plus a negative, a large positive minus a small positive minus a large positive, and so on. You can see we end up with a lot of different scenarios. And some people say, okay, I'm just going to memorize this whole shebang, but that is a lot of things to memorize when really you need to know which direction to move on the number line. So if you're adding a positive, you move right on the number line. So we start here, we'd go that way. If we're adding a negative, we move the opposite direction. We'd go left on the number line. If we're subtracting a positive, we move the opposite direction as when we're adding. So we would move left when we're subtracting a positive. And when we're subtracting a negative, we'd move right. So a couple examples, and I'm going to use the number line to show how that works. So if I had 2 plus 7, I start at 2, I'm adding a positive. So I'm going to move 7 to the right, and I end up at positive 9. If I start at 2 and I'm adding negative 7, I'm going to move 7 to the left. So I get negative 5. If I start at 7 and I add negative 2, well, I'm going to move to the left because I'm adding a negative. So 2 to the left, I go down to positive 5. And if I start at negative 2 and I add negative 7, so I'm adding a negative, I move left. I'm going to be a little further than my number line is showing. I'm going to be all the way down to negative 9. So subtraction, we're moving the opposite direction, left when subtracting a positive, right when subtracting a negative. But the other thing to keep in mind with subtraction is that subtracting is the same as adding the opposite sign. So 7 subtract 2 is the same as 7 plus negative 2. Either way, that says move to the right. So I end up at 5. 2 subtract 7, so I start at 2, and I subtract 7, so I'm going to move this direction 7 over. I end up at negative 5. Note that that's the same as 2 plus negative 7. Either way, I'm moving right. 7 subtract negative 2. So when you get these two negatives in a row, that's particularly where it's useful to change the signs, because subtracting a negative is the same as adding a positive. So I'm starting out at negative 7, and I'm adding 2. So I'm going to move to the right, and I end up with negative 5. I guess I should put that in there. Negative 2 subtract negative 7. So starting at negative 2. And I'm going to subtract negative 7. So that's the same as adding positive 7. So I'm going to move 7 this direction. I end up over at positive 5. Seven minus negative 2, again, we can change that minus a minus to plus a positive. So we're starting at 7 and adding 2, we end up at 9. And negative 7, subtract 2, again, I'm off my number line, I end up at minus 9. Off my scale, I should say, still on my number line. So that's kind of adding and subtracting in a summary. Multiplying and dividing, there's only two rules. Most people find multiplying and dividing a little easier. If it's the same sign, the result is positive. If you are multiplying or dividing opposite signs, the result is negative. So for example, same sign, positive 2 times positive 7, or negative 2 times negative 7, I'm going to get positive 14. If I have opposite signs, doesn't matter which order, negative 2 times positive 7, or positive 2 times negative 7, I'm going to end up with a negative answer. Likewise, when I'm doing division, positive divided by a positive gives me a positive. Positive divided by a negative, they're opposite sides, I'm going to get a negative. Negative divided by a negative, they're both the same sign, I'm going to get a positive answer. And a negative divided by a positive, they're opposite signs, I'm going to get a negative answer. Lastly, we're going to look at exponents. So positive number to any exponent is going to give us a positive result. But a negative number depends on if we have an even exponent or an odd exponent. So an even exponent will give us a positive result, an odd exponent will give us a negative result. So positive number, any power, we're going to get a positive result. But a negative exponent, it depends on if we're talking about even or odd. So negative 7 squared, right, that means negative 7 times negative 7. If we think about our multiplication rules, exponents just taking that multiplication rule and stretching it, right? So it's a negative times a negative. Same sign, we're going to get positive. But if we have an odd number, we can take that and split it into pairs, but we'll have one left over, right? So negative 2 to the power 7 is negative 2 7 times over. I've grouped these, right? So 2, 4, 6, 7. So these two will give us a positive. The next two will give us a positive. The next pair will give us a positive. So that's all positive times a negative. So positive times a negative gives us a negative overall. So hopefully that helps you with your integers, and you can use it in other places.